Afternoon, everybody. Great to be here. Thanks for joining us for this memorable announcement and presentation. I'm Ken Kennerly. I'm the former executive director of what's now the Cognizant Classic, and I know many of you in the room, and it's certainly great to be here. And thank you. Normally we're standing when we speak, so this is a little different sitting here, a little bit more comfortable. But today we're here to present the 2024 Tim Rosaforte Distinguished Journalist Award. You know, this award, named after Rosie, as we all know, is such a special award. You're sitting in the Tim Rosaforte Media Center. This was named after Tim in 2021 before he passed. And then, of course, we created the inaugural Tim Rosaforte Award in 2021, which, of course, suitably, the person sitting on number one position on the award, of course, is Tim himself. You know, what a tremendous personality Rosie was. For those of you that got to know him, he was all about, talk about sunshine and the big smile, and he always knew everything going on in this great game of golf. And the world lost a great one in 2022, January 2022, after a lengthy battle. And we all kind of get choked up when we talk about our great friend. And he was the man of everything. I mean, he was the global leader of golf, of reporting, journalism, obviously Golf Channel. He had a tremendous career with the Golf Channel as well, Sports Illustrated, et cetera, et cetera. So before we present the award, I do want to recognize a few people that are here today. His lovely widow, Genevieve Rosaforte's here, and his daughter, Molly Calling's here. I know Jenna is not here with us today, the number two daughter. But Genevieve, you know how much this means to us and Molly to remember your dad and your husband. And Rosie's name will never be forgotten. What you're sitting here in this perpetual Tim Rosaforte Media Center, we hope will continue for everyone and for everything and through the years, as long as we have professional golf here in Palm Beach County. And, again, when we think back about what Rosie represented and the integrity and the professionalism and his commitment to not only the great game of golf, but representing honesty and integrity and telling it as it is. And, in the media, it's what should be done. And I think everybody in the media in this room will agree with me that, Tim was the finest in the game, in the world of sports journalism. So with that, I also want to recognize our committee that we get together annually and talk about Rosie and reminisce about some great times. Jack Druga, Jack, formerly with Shinnecock, is here in the middle part of the room. I will share quickly a little plug. Jack and team are putting together a great event at the Floridian on May 6th. So it's going to be a fundraiser to raise money for the Tim Rosaforte Scholarship, for the First Tee, and also for the Western Golf Association Evans Scholars. Jack, and you've taken the leadership on that, and I'm certainly proud to be part of your committee as well. Joe Steranka is not here with us today. He's traveling, but Joanne Steranka is here. Great to have Joanne. As I told Joe, we've got his much better half with us today. So Joanne, as she reminded me outside, she also was a great friend of Rosie's. So Joanne, welcome. Julius Mason from the PGA of America, great friend of golf, obviously, probably one of the smoothest speakers in the game. So Julius, great to have you on our committee. Jeff Lofstad, he's not here with us today, but Jeff's the executive director of the South Florida PGA. He's had a busy couple days. Kevin Murphy from MacArthur Golf Club. Kevin's not here with us today, but he sends his regards and congratulations to our recipient. Bob Ford, sitting next to Jack down there. Bob, it's great to have you here. Always has time for Rosie, always has time to talk about how do we remember this great man in golf that represented and took care of literally all of us. And then, of course, Craig Dolch, our phenomenal recipient today. Craig is a catalyst on this committee, really inspirational for us and inspired all of us, along with Joe Steranka, to create the Tim Rosaforte Media Center and to create this perpetual award to recognize the finest of golf journalism. So I thank you guys for everything you've done to help me along the way. I'm just a pawn in the little game of life up here, and it's just honored to be able to put all this together as we were looking to recognize Rosie. As you probably remember, as I said earlier, Tim won our first award in 2021. I'll never forget when Tim was walking down the hallway. I think it was well documented, Genevieve on Golf Channel, coming down. He saw his name attached to the media center, and Tim was okay then, but he was still maybe a little unsure as to what he was looking at. And he's like, "What's that for?" And I said, "Well, Tim, this is all for you. And we're going to, this media center, there's no better person to acknowledge and remember in the golf media world, certainly in Palm Beach County, than Tim Rosaforte." And that was such a special time for him. In 22, Larry Dorman, many of you all remember Larry. Larry, another pillar in the journalistic world from the New York Times, and then later with Callaway and others. Larry was the recipient number 2. And last year, for those of you that were here, Randy Mell. Randy was always a huge proponent of what was then the Honda Classic, now the Cognizant Classic. And just a phenomenal recipient. As for those of you that were here, both Larry and Randy, very emotional as they accepted this great award to be on that plaque in perpetuity. So again, just a tremendous honor. Before we get started here real quick, I just want to pivot here. In the back of the room is our new executive director of the Cognizant Classic, Todd Fleming. Todd, I look forward to getting to know you bigger and better, certainly, and I hope all the media will get to know you as well. Your reputation is impeccable from a lot of people that we know together, so I wish you the very best. And I think as you come to understanding this market, and certainly understanding what the people that resonate well in this market, you're going to fit in beautifully because it's a great spot. So, Todd, welcome. Okay, about our recipient, Craig Dolch. What can you say? I mean, a 40-year friend of Rosie's. You're going to hear from Craig here in a little bit. Wrote for the Palm Beach Post, 1986 to 2008. He's been a freelance writer since. He's written over 5,000 articles on the game of golf. Again, like Rosie, very transparent, telling it as it is. Just a phenomenal representative of the journalism world. Member of the Palm Beach County Sports Hall of Fame. I was honored to be at that induction with Craig. Craig started the Eric Dolch Foundation, which is the name of his son, Eric. And by the way, Alex, his lovely daughter, is here with us today. Congratulations, Alex, to you. So when Eric was in 2005, I believe, diagnosed with encephalitis, Craig was at the U.S. Open, as you have read in many stories. Craig came back, obviously cares to his son, and I know Alex does to her brother each and every day. And Rosie was there from the beginning. And Rosie helped Craig start the Eric Dolch Foundation, ran the inaugural event to help raise money for the foundation. So without further ado, it's my honor, honestly my honor, to present to you the 2024 Tim Rosaforte Distinguished Journalist Award winner, to a great friend of golf and certainly a great friend of Rosie's and a great friend of everybody in this building. Please welcome Craig Dolch. Yeah, we're going to present this in a little bit and get some photos. But Craig, as we get started, this is your takeaway here, recognizing you as the 2024 recipient of the Tim Rosaforte Distinguished Journalist Award. So Craig, I'm going to leave you up here by yourself for a minute because you deserve it. I'll be right back.
Ken, thank you very much. I'd like to thank quite a few people, all the people on the committee. Ken, for starting the award. You were really the impetus to get this thing done. I thank Todd Fleming and Joey Chitwood from the Cognizant Classic for keeping Tim's media room still here, keeping the award alive. And also I want to thank my family, my daughter, Alex. One thing, we get to do an awful lot of fun things in our jobs, but our families pay a price for it sometimes. I mean, the U.S. Open finishes on the final day of Father's Day, so I really, I went years and years without being able to visit with my kids on Father's Day, and so they put up with an awful lot for us to chase our dreams and do what we enjoy, and thank you, everyone. But When Ken first called and told me that I'd gotten the award, it took my breath away, and it still does. To be able to receive an award named after your best friend is something that it's hard to describe. I am just, I can't tell you how proud it makes me, how thrilled it makes me. And I also want to thank Jen and Molly and her family because you guys have been able to let me be a part of your family. You were very open about Tim's situation, kind of like what Tim was, very open, very honest. And it's just something that, it's definitely, and I'm sure that Larry and Randy would concur with this. This is the highlight of our careers, to be able to be associated with an award named after Tim Rosaforte. And it's very fitting it happens this week, not only because this is happening in the Tim Rosaforte Media Room, but a little background. I met Tim briefly in early '81 when I just moved down to Tampa to start after college, and Tim was the guy who was moving out of there. So I kind of met him a little bit. He wanted to borrow my van, so we got to know for a little bit. And then I came down here, started working for the Evening Times in late 1982. I was at the Senior PGA Championship, and it's probably not more than maybe a 20-second walk where I ran into Tim standing behind the green. And I'm like, I remember you, because back then he still had hair. And so we kind of just, wow, this is kind of neat. And Don January won that championship, but I really felt like I was one of the biggest winners that day because that started a 40-year friendship that I was very blessed to have. Anybody that knows Tim in here, and I'm sure everybody does, knows the type of person he was. I would walk in here with him occasionally through the lobby, and everybody would start going, Tim, 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 and everybody knew him. He knew everybody. And I would say, Tim, how do you remember everybody's names? But he said, look, if you're like a club professional and that door opens at 7:30 in the morning, you need to know who the members are. You need to know who people are. And I can't tell you how many of my friends marvel at his ability to remember and stay in touch with people. And that was one of the really sad things about the disease that he went through, was it robbed him of one of the things that he really was great at, and remembering everybody. And he would walk up to somebody he might not have seen for a year or two, and he would say, great job on that story last month, and just to build people up. And in this society these days where everybody's tearing each other down, Tim spent most of his life building people up. And he was a model and a mentor that, I every time I try and do something these days, a lot of times I think about, what would Tim do? How would Tim deal with this? How would he write this story? How would he, deal with this controversy? And to be able to call him up and talk to him and get that kind of guidance is something that we all miss. I know you guys miss it more than anybody, but the friendship that we had, it was just something that I was very blessed to be around Tim, and as you guys were too. I could go on. The thing about Tim that really struck me is when people get to the success he had, sometimes you don't really, it happens. Tim came from very humble beginnings. He was one of his first family members to go to college. And, you looked up near the end when he was doing all these things on NBC and Golf Channel, and he was really the golf's first insider. He was just, he worked for this. The number of times he drove to St. Augustine for the USA Network golf show, the number of times he drove to Orlando for the Golf Channel show, he earned everything he got. And that is something that, you can't help but be a better person by knowing that. He taught me the importance of reporting, to talk to all these extra people. Don't just talk to one person. And he was right. The more you reported a story, the easier it was to write the story. And, our job sometimes is to write things that people aren't going to like. You have to do it, but the way to do it, and in Tim's case, he knew how to keep the relationship with someone. If he wrote something that people didn't like, he would get in touch with them as soon as possible and say, do we have any problems here? And if they did, they would work it out. And that's the kind of thing that I wish everybody in our society would do these days, is try and work our problems out instead of just screaming and yelling and then storming away.
Well, Craig, congratulations. If there are any questions, Craig will certainly take them now. I do just have one quickly. I mean, you talk about the modesty of Rosie and the transparency of Rosie and the professionalism of Rosie, and you're right there with him, Craig. I mean, in today's world, there's no one more modest than you. We've known each other a long time. You write brilliant stories day in and day out. I love reading them. Tom D'Angelo, who's here, wrote a great story about you today. What was that like, talking to Tom about helping him write the story about yourself? Because again, I know it's not always about you. I mean, Golf Father of the Year, Golf Week several years ago, I was up there for that presentation as well. I mean, again, Tom, you wrote a great story on our recipient this year. I mean, help us understand a little bit about that discussion, that topic, Craig, because I know you don't like to pat yourself on the back too often.
Well, Tom, you did a great job on it. I know it's not easy to write about a colleague and a friend, and you made it. The point was, I have kind of made this somewhat of my passion the last few years, and certainly as Tim was starting to really struggle to honor him and to make sure that people, knew. And they knew, but I mean, just to know what his situation was. The PGA of America made him the 12th honorary member. The Memorial Tournament gave him a journalism award. You had this, you had so many things that Tim did, but to talk about it, it's not easy because, when people say as a journalist you can't put things into words, how are you going to do your job? But it really was hard talking about him, and I just tried to kind of go back to the things that I learned from him, and you talk about. He would give you as much, encouragement as he could, but he also told you if you did something wrong. I mean, we would kid him. We'd call him Arnold Palmer sometimes because if you showed up to a press room not dressed properly, if you had high socks on, basketball socks or whatever, he would say, dude, this is not what you need to be doing here. And I'm sure he's looking down right now and saying, Dolch, why aren't you wearing a tie today, But the reality is I'm wearing this shirt because this is one of the shirts Tim gave me a few years ago, and I feel like purple's the appropriate color, and it helps me feel even a little closer to Tim these days.
Thank you, Craig. Any other questions from anyone here? Well, Craig, it's been a great ride, and one other quickie. I mean, you and many of the other great writers in this room today, you're the voice of golf to our consumer, to our client. You all have been very supportive of the growth of this tournament over the last 18 years. Certainly, we're looking forward to the next 18 years here in Palm Beach County. Talk a little bit about the growth of the players that have moved into town here. I mean, it just seems like each and every day there's another player coming here. I know Rosie wrote that great story, I think, it was a Golf World, perhaps, where we had a map of all the great golf courses and everything else down here. What is the attraction? I mean, we know the attraction, but from a writer standpoint, as you try to explain this to the world, why are so many players coming down into this community?
Well, I remember back 15, 20 years ago when we were covering the Honda Classic, you couldn't give away tickets to this tournament. It just did not have the appeal, and it was down in Broward County, then it moved up here. A lot of people have moved here. I don't know how much of it is because of, obviously a lot of it's the weather, having the chance to play against fellow professionals. That's the way they get better, is playing against people their age. But, Tim moved up here pretty quickly too when he started working for the Palm Beach Post. And it's just something that, we look around and what the tournament has become. Now the Cognizant Classic, where you hated to see Honda leave just because it's what everybody knew, but the important thing is the tournament stayed around here. And, Tim was never a homer, but he certainly was. This was his hometown tournament, and he cared about it. And, we all, tried to do what we can to focus on the positive and not just write about people who aren't here. And, those were the things I kind of learned about Tim is, there's a way to write it where you can get your message across and be positive and not be, tearing people down.
Absolutely right. And I see Carl Mastretta's here, our executive director of the First Tee. I know you've done a lot of work with Carl in the First Tee as well, Craig, and we can't thank you enough. And you know, this day is just very special for all of us, but me in particular, and I'm just so honored to be sitting up here next to you, presenting you with the 2024 Tim Rosaforte Distinguished Journalist Award. So once again, how about a nice round of applause for Craig Dolcher? Now let's get some photos with these great. Thank you. We'll do this one first. Here we go. Whoop. Gary, where do you want to do this? Where's Gary? You want to do it on the side or right here? Hold on.